Welcome back to List Of. Every history book presents a seamless, logical march of time. Empires rise, technologies advance, lessons are learned, usually. But sometimes history experiences a glitch, a catastrophic, bizarre, or frankly embarrassing moment so strange, it feels less like fact and more like a poorly written movie script. These are the events that prove reality is often much stranger, and sometimes much stickier than fiction. 1. The Tunguska event. Let's start with an event so massive, it's still debated whether it was a comet, an asteroid, or an interdimensional prank. We're talking about the Tunguska Explosion, which flattened 80 million trees across 800 square miles of Siberian forest in 1908. The strange part? Zero impact crater. Witnesses saw a massive blue light streak across the sky, followed by a blast so powerful it registered across Europe. It measured up to 15 megatons, the energy of a large thermonuclear weapon, yet the forest was leveled in a butterfly pattern, radiating outward from a central point. The most accepted theory is an airburst meteor that detonated miles above the ground, vaporizing before it hit. The other theories? Well, they involve everything from black holes to Nikola Tesla testing a new weapon. Take your pick. 2. The Great Molasses Flood. Now, from an incomprehensible natural disaster to a profoundly sweet and sticky human failure. Boston, 1919. It was an unusually warm January day when a 50-foot-tall storage tank containing 2.3 million gallons of molasses ruptured violently. The resulting tsunami of thick brown syrup, estimated to be 25 feet high, slammed into the North End neighborhood at 35 miles per hour. The speed and density were lethal. It crushed buildings, derailed a streetcar, and sadly caused 21 deaths and injured 150 people. Rescue efforts were hampered by the molasses itself, which hardened in the cold air, trapping victims. The cleanup took weeks. For decades afterward, residents claimed that on hot summer days, the entire neighborhood still smelled faintly of burnt sugar. It's a tragic tale, yes, but it remains the only time in history a city was truly defeated by desert. 3. The exploding whale. When dealing with the bizarre, few events top the sheer, immediate, unforgettable chaos of the exploding whale event in Florence, Oregon, 1970. A 45-foot sperm whale washed ashore. The dilemma: how to dispose of a multi-ton rotting marine mammal. The solution decided upon by the Oregon Highway Division was spectacular in its folly: dynamite. They believed a massive charge would disintegrate the carcass into tiny, harmless pieces that scavengers could finish off. Spoiler alert, that is not what happened. Instead, the blast launched massive chunks of rotten whale blubber high into the atmosphere. The onlookers, who had gathered some distance away, suddenly found themselves drenched in oily, foul-smelling whale debris. A nearby reporter famously captured the moment when a car was crushed by a piece of blubber the size of a coffee table. The problem, naturally, was not solved. It was a failure so comprehensive, the government agency later issued a statement that they had learned an important lesson. If you're trying to move a whale, don't use high explosives. 4. The Cadaver Synod. History has seen some cruel trials, but none quite as theatrical as the Cadaver Synod of 897 AD. In Rome, Pope Stephen VI decided that his predecessor, Pope Formosus, had been elected illegally. His solution? Dig him up. Formosus's corpse, 9 months dead, was dressed in full papal vestments, propped up on a throne, and subjected to a vigorous trial. A nervous deacon was assigned to stand next to the decomposing pontiff and speak on his behalf. Unsurprisingly, the silent, skeletal defendant was found guilty. He was stripped of his robes, his fingers used for blessing were chopped off, and his body was tossed into the Tiber River. This bizarre display of papal rage caused an immediate scandal, leading to Pope Stephen VI being imprisoned and ultimately strangled. The Cadaver Synod proved that in medieval politics, even death wasn't guaranteed to get you out of a court date. 5. The Great Emu War. Let's jump to the modern era, where mankind supposedly reigns supreme. Meet Australia, 1932. The enemy? Emus. Following a severe drought, 20,000 emus, large, flightless, extremely resilient birds, decided the lush fields of Western Australia were more appealing than the parched interior. They began destroying crops and fences. The solution, provided by the Australian military, involved deploying 2 highly decorated soldiers, a truck, and 2 Lewis machine guns. The mission was simple: eliminate the emu threat. What followed was not a war, but a 3-week lesson in humiliation. Emus are remarkably fast and impervious to bullets. They scattered, dodged, and ran chaotic counterattacks. The soldiers expended thousands of rounds of ammunition, killed maybe a dozen birds, and were constantly thwarted by jammed guns and the sheer absurdity of trying to machine gun a flock of enormous feathered poultry. The local commander summarized the defeat perfectly, stating, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. The emus won. They are the only bird species to defeat a major world military." 6. The dancing plague of 1518. Imagine a medical emergency that sounds like a fever dream, people uncontrollably dancing until they die of exhaustion. This was the reality in Strasbourg, 1518. It began with one woman, Frau Trophea, who simply stepped into the street and started dancing. She didn't stop. Within a week, dozens had joined her, spinning, leaping, and twitching. Within a month, hundreds were dancing day and night, unable to control their bodies. The city authorities decided the best cure was more dancing. They constructed a stage, cleared a hall, and encouraged the afflicted to dance the fever out. This naturally only amplified the hysteria. People dropped dead from heart attacks, strokes, and sheer exhaustion. It wasn't until around 400 people were involved, and several dozen had died, that the city finally intervened, realizing that perhaps the medical treatment for chronic dancing shouldn't be a rave. 7. Dyatlov Pass Incident. Finally, we have the mystery that still haunts the Ural Mountains. Dyatlov Pass, 1959. 9 experienced Russian hikers ventured into the mountains and never returned. When search parties found their tent, it was baffling. It had been slashed open from the inside, suggesting the group fled in a panic into deep snow without proper clothing. The bodies were found scattered over the next several weeks. Some died of hypothermia, which makes sense, but the forensic evidence on others defies easy explanation. One victim had a fractured skull. 2 had missing eyes. 1 woman was missing her tongue. Crucially, several of the victims' clothing contained high levels of radiation, and some bodies showed no external injuries, yet massive internal trauma consistent with a high-force impact, like a car crash. The Soviet investigation concluded the deaths were caused by a compelling unknown force. To this day, the myriad theories, from paradoxical undressing and infrasound panic to military weapon testing to the inevitable Yeti, make this case the undisputed king of historical horror glitches. From murderous syrup to machine gun-wielding birds, history is packed with moments that defy logic and common sense. They remind us that the past wasn't just kings and battles. It was also the occasional, massive, government-sanctioned whale explosion. Which of these historical glitches do you find the most unbelievable? Let us know in the comments below. If you want more lists of the absurd and the unbelievable, make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and we'll see you next time on List Of.